So about 5 months ago, I made this video and it went off the rails to say the least. So in an effort to avoid that bullshit again, let's start with why I'm making this video. A couple of disclaimers. So you're not going to get to see my face in action today. My fiance is doing her creative thing in the living room, so I am doing my creative thing in the bedroom, but I like to film in the living room, so unfortunately you'll just have to settle for these lovely pictures of us on our vacation. Also, when that video, the initial video that I was trying to make, which was supposed to be a part of a 3-part series, came out, and literally no one got the plot. Everybody lost the plot. I realized that I actually never got to make the video about Featurism and Texturism that I wanted to make. And so now, let's do this one more time. Nobody has inherently more value than anyone else because of their skin tone, facial features, or hair texture. But don't just take my word for it. Listen to one of the actual beneficiaries of Featurism and Texturism, the primary beneficiaries of Featurism and Texturism, and tell me what you think.
A hot take, but if America wants to actually heal, we need to completely end the concept of whiteness. White people like to claim to this idea that we are inherently a superior race. The concept of whiteness wasn't invented until the 17th century. Even then, it was only used to justify oppression of people based off their skin color, so you could easily identify who was somebody in power and who wasn't. If you saw a white person walking down the street versus a black or brown person, you can immediately assume social status, which if you're trying to extract wealth from those individuals, makes it very easy to tell the place of those people. That's why I think it's so ridiculous when people are like, oh, white people are superior, because we literally could not do anything throughout history by ourselves. We had to have black and brown people do it for us because we're so fucking incompetent. Whiteness isn't real. It's a social construct made up under capitalism to exploit wealth and extract resources. You are not special because you have lighter skin. You are not God's chosen people because you have light skin. Even calling yourself a white person doesn't even make any fucking sense, because it was something that was created relatively recently and only under the basis of creating a system of slavery and oppression. The concept of race as a whole is completely made up, so shut the fuck up.
If the blonde-haired, blue-eyed white lady is saying that, there's no shorthand way to explain it. It's stupid. And that was always the point in my making these videos. This colorism series was supposed to be a breakdown of how and why the ideology of colorism is not only stupid, but is quite literally taking the master's tools to disenfranchise each other and ultimately ourselves. It serves no one, because white supremacy serves no one. Ultimately, it doesn't even serve white people. That was always the point in these videos. Letting go of stupid viewpoints frees you from the trap of societal expectations and crippling insecurity. After all, comparison is the thief of joy. However, in my first video on colorism, people actually did understand my intentions behind it. I discussed the history behind colorism and colonialism, its effects on Black America, and the way that colorism has taken root in our society to unfortunately become a reality that many people swear by and live by. It was a good dialogue in the comment section full of intelligent, thoughtful people who understood what I was trying to do and say with that video. So what the actual fuck happened with my Featurism video? I do have some theories, so let's talk about it. I think the problem with the Texturism and Featurism video is that it dives into essentially eugenics, which I touched on in my first colorism video. According to the National Human Research Institute, eugenics is an inaccurate theory linked to historical and present-day forms of discrimination, racism, ableism, and colonialism. It's persisted in policies and beliefs around the world, including the United States. Long story short, my video attracted a bunch of self-hating eugenicists and some misguided Black women. The Black women who, didn't quite get the plot of the video, I have all the sympathy in the world for. I will always have endless patience for Black women. And I'll get to them. We will address them later in the video. But it's the Black women who were so lost in the sauce that they are parroting eugenicists. The empathy muscle might not flex for these bitches. I'm sorry. They might not get the empathy spoon fed to them. So let's first talk about the link between Featurism, Texturism, and eugenics. According to the National Human Research Institute, eugenics started roughly in the late 1800s. Leaders and intellectuals worldwide perpetuated eugenic beliefs and policies based on common racist and xenophobic attitudes. Eugenics is the scientifically erroneous and immoral theory of racial improvement and planned breeding, which gained popularity during the early 20th century. The effects of eugenics led to the racist belief that Europeans could and should exploit Black, Indigenous, and Asian communities due to their own delusions of grandeur. Their self-imposed belief of their own superiority led them to believe that they deserved resources, land, and even lordship over other human bodies. We see this in their displacement of Indigenous people from their own lands, their attempt at enslaving Indigenous folks, and eventually their kidnapping of Indigenous children whom they abused in the name of civilizing them. And in the case of Black people, it resulted in white people's belief that Black people were unable to govern ourselves and thus needed to be lorded over through enslavement. And this leads us into scientific racism. Scientific racism is an ideology that appropriates the methods and legitimacy of science to argue for the superiority of white Europeans and in the inferiority of non-white people whose social and economic statuses have been historically marginalized. Scientific racism was the basis for chattel slavery. It empowered white people to view and subsequently treat Black people like animals, exposing them to torture, rape, mutilation, and other forms of violence. This is the basis of colorism, featurism, and texturism. So imagine my surprise when a bunch of Black women who believe in this sort of illogical ideology began commenting and making videos and posts about me like I was the fucking bad guy for saying that it was wrong because they were too stupid to actually understand what I was saying in the video. I was deeply confused. I was so confused. However, after watching a video by one of the Black women of the eugenicist cult of Black ladies regarding the beautiful reality TV star turned fashion influencer Olandria, where she began criticizing Olandria's facial symmetry, I started to realize exactly what kind of beast I was dealing with. This article from the University of Virginia states it plainly and perfectly when it says, "This is phrenology repackaged for the 21st century." According to the same article, phrenology, a long disproven pseudoscience from the 19th century, generally asserts that physical characteristics such as skull shape is indicative of one's character and ability. What I noticed about these ladies' content is that they attempt to sit on the throne of superiority by using the same ideology that would be used to victimize them. Many of the women and their followers who flooded my comment section with projections of self-hate and inferiority on the basis of my skin tone and hair texture are Black women with the exact same skull shape, facial features, and skin tones that the quack doctors who dreamed up the pseudoscience they spew out in their content would consider inferior. I don't know if they don't realize this because they're not smart enough to, or if it's because if they actually engaged any deeper with the ideology they're espousing, they would have to confront the fact that they too exist on the bottom rungs of the social hierarchy right beside me. I think it's a mixture of delusion for the sake of self-preservation and a lack of intelligence. As I discussed in my podcast with my fiance and my video talking about Black women and self-love, go watch both, a lot of these women have severe inferiority complexes and self-esteem issues, which they hide behind a sense of superiority. The same way that many narcissists came to be the way they are as a means of self-preservation, what I'm beginning to realize is that a lot of these women who place all of their worth in their looks know that they don't have much else to offer, if anything at all. It's a deep-seated insecurity that they hide behind a fragile sense of superiority. In order to do this, they actually do something that would be clever if it wasn't so insidious. They employ actual social science to couch their pseudoscience in. Let me explain. The cult of eugenicist Black ladies acknowledge the very real phenomenon of privilege being linked to Eurocentric features and hair texture. The problem is they use this logic to assert their own self-assigned superiority. It's a logical fallacy buried beneath actual facts. It's an actual fact that featurism and texturism do lead to social privileges for those who have more Eurocentric features. It's a complete fallacy that being white, white-presenting, light-skinned, or having certain features or hair types genuinely makes someone better than anyone else, which is what they try to preach on their individual pages, that they are genuinely actually better people and therefore superior to anyone else because they have the features that they have. It's eugenics. But hey, don't take my word for it. You don't have to look any further than the colorists who espouse this nonsense themselves.
This is about how bland becomes branded. She's elevated not because she's exceptional, but because she's familiar. She's digestible beauty, default settings. Her look doesn't command attention. It disappears into the crowd. I've seen her face in group photos for over a decade, but
in the video criticizing Olandria, for example, we can run down the accolades and accomplishments of each woman. Olandria not only carries high glam looks with elegance, grace, and poise, she exudes an it factor that resonated with millions. As a result, not only did Olandria amass a following of 2.3 million people on IG alone, but brands, fashion houses, and moguls took note of her it girl quality and invested in her. She's managed to parlay her reality TV fame into a legitimate fashion career, landing magazine covers, brand deals, and sponsorships. She also made off with the golden boy of the show, Nick, with whom, as far as I know, she's still in a loving relationship with. Now, compare this to the creator who was talking about her, and what do we know about that woman? That's right, nothing. She has none of the things that Olandria does. That's because, despite what her critics say, Olandria carries herself with a level of self-confidence that she didn't have to build up at the expense of anyone else. Even with her wide nose, big lips, and dark skin, people who believe themselves to be superior to her still can't seem to keep her name out of their mouths. They've bought into the lie of eugenics, and they're genuinely confused as to why the logic isn't holding up. But that's what happens when you believe in fairy tales. You know, it's a lot like the white women who absolutely fucking hate Meghan Markle. I mean, Meghan Markle could sneeze and they would talk about how that caused the 9/11 falling of the Twin Towers. I mean, seriously, that woman cannot slide to the left, slide to the right without it causing a storm on white women TikTok. By the logic of the Black Lady Eugenicist cult, however, Meghan Markle is experiencing all of the benefits of being a damn near white presenting woman with her light skin, freckles, light eyes, and loose hair texture. Yet Meghan has been dragged through the mud since the moment white women became aware of her relationship to Harry. Different input, same results. The women who uphold colorism, featurism, texturism, fat phobia, white supremacy, and eugenics all suffer from the same fate. They all live half lives, because if you were so superior to someone else, then your time would be occupied with all the luxuries and privileges that your higher social status is supposed to be able to afford you. Yet these women, including the ones that flooded my comments and made videos, live streams, and posts about myself and my fiance and my work and my looks, are still talking about me and all the other women that they say they don't envy and wouldn't trade places with in their empty apartments and empty lives. Because at the end of the day, being at the top of the social hierarchy means nothing if you're still constantly looking down to see what the peasants are doing. But we know on Vintage in Color that women who are deemed as quote-unquote less worthy by society go on to lead fulfilling and rewarding lives all the time. We talk about them. Hell, I'm showing them on the screen as we speak, very intentionally. Because at the end of the day, you can let life happen to you or you can make life happen for you. And dark-skinned, kinky-haired, big feature-having, plus-size, disabled, LGBTQ women all throughout history have always made a way out of no way. Hence why I'm able to show you countless images of women who exist at the quote-unquote bottom of the social hierarchy with their beautiful families, supportive friend groups, loving partners, adorable children, successful careers, and rewarding social lives right now. Meanwhile, the ugly little reality of women who believe in eugenics, aka Looksmaxxing, aka Featurism, aka Texturism, aka Colorism, can only talk about the superior lives they imagine themselves to have in their empty apartments. I want to end this video on this note, okay? So, sit with me here. Sit with me here, guys. Actually, I might cam up. I might cam up for this one. I don't know. We'll see. I decided not to cam up. It's going to be too much work. Sit with me, though. When I made the initial Featurism and Texturism video, I did so using a variety of Black and non-Black POC old Hollywood artists. This confused my audience, but that's because I ended up tapping into a different audience, not my own, but I think I ended up attracting a lot of women who maybe find themselves down these particular rabbit holes of colorism and featurism. You know, these rabbit holes that kind of speak more about featurism and texturism and all that. on a regular basis. I talk about those things kind of as an offshoot to what my channel is really about, but my channel is called Vintage and Color because we talk about vintage history with a focus on old Hollywood and the Harlem Renaissance. My audience knows that, especially the audience that crossed over with me from TikTok, but these ladies who are just coming in, who may not have had exposure to me, they didn't know that. And I didn't realize that these women existed so prevalently. As I explained at the beginning of the video, I tapped into an audience of Black women who specifically seemed to watch content on colorism and featurism, and until I made that video and that audience found me, I had no idea that this kind of content was so prevalent, I guess, and had this much of an audience. Now, I know of the colorism content because I have followed them, and I've been fans of some of the colorism content creators, but it's not a space that I've really delved into or been a part of for a really long time. So I kind of just forgot about it. And I regret that some of these people have exposed me to some of the worst, honestly worst human beings I have ever had the misfortune or displeasure of knowing exist. Because of this, I am now on the radar of one of the most annoying gnats I have ever encountered, and it has been a 4 to 5 month journey with this bitch. And now I know about these eugenicists. I would rather not know about these eugenicists, and I would rather they not know about me. But here we are. This video is going for too long, and so I'm gonna finish this up and make this part a little bit faster. When I made that video and I featured those women, the video was not supposed to be about whether or not those women were Black. It was supposed to illustrate how featurism and texturism have to constantly bend and warp in order to make sense, because at their core, featurism and texturism are illogical, like most social constructs. What those women saw, however, was me calling what they perceived to be non-Black women Black. So let me explain this. In the historical context of when those women would have been coming of age and pursuing their careers, and I'm going to put them on screen. Their names are Lena Horne, Donna Drake, and Freddie Washington. And when they would have been coming of age, and in the historical context that they would have been living their lives, they were considered Black women during their time. And more importantly, all but one of them considered themselves to be Black women. The only one who chose to pass was Donna Drake, and Donna isn't even the whitest looking out of all of them. Now, do I consider these ladies Black? Yes, because they considered themselves Black, and that's what they were considered to be in the era that they came of age in. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Calm down. Take your fingers, take your fresh manicure off the keypad. Let me finish. I was not viewing these women through a contemporary lens when discussing them. I was taking the historical context into consideration when I was making that video. That being said, I understand the defensive reaction that many Black women took in the comment section. Those Black women are reacting to the very real and very hurtful phenomenon of Afrocentric Black beauty slowly being phased out in pop culture and media. Trust me, I've seen it. I've noticed it. I'm a child of the 90s and the early 2000s. I remember growing up with gorgeous brown-skinned and dark-skinned women all over TV who I could look up to. And I have noticed the difference between the Black femme representation then versus the Black femme representation now. So looking back at that reaction that everybody had, I understand that a lot of Black women saw those ladies, heard my words, and thought that what I was saying was that these women, Lena, Donna, all of these ladies, are an accurate representation of Black women and Black beauty. They're not. Let me make this very clear. Most Black women do not look like Lena Horne, and they damn sure don't look like Freddie Washington. However, that was never the point of the video. The point was featurism and texturism, which I regret to inform y'all means that I had to find women that would fit the bill. I'm sorry. Vera Francis, Sheila Geis, as gorgeous as they are, they would not have cut it. The Black women that fit the bill are the Black women that barely look like Black women. As I said in that previous video, I understand that the reaction comes from a place of hurt, frustration, defensiveness. It's a protective mechanism. It's an attempt to protect and defend your position in a society, in a social climate, determined to force you out of it. But you will never have to worry about that on this channel. A part of the beauty of Vintage and Color channel and Vintage and Color ethos is that Afrocentric Black women are so highly celebrated over here that when we do veer off and talk about a light-skinned or white-presenting woman, you can rest assured that it will always be a detour. Black women with dark skin, big noses, and kinky hair will always reign supreme over here because when you love yourself, you celebrate yourself. And happy Black History Month on that note. Bye.